Welcome to the NRL Punters Weekly Digest, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know leading into this week's NRL matches. This is our Round 7 Team List edition. And on Thursday night, we have the Penrith Panthers taking on the Newcastle Knights from Bluebet Stadium. For the Panthers, no changes to the side that beat the Broncos last week, the hapless Brisbane Broncos. But in good news for the Panthers, Dylan Edwards and Api Koroisau have been named in the reserves so they could make an early return from injury. For the Knights, Hymel Hunt has suffered a hamstring injury and is out of the side. That was in the Sharks game last week. He suffered that injury. He is replaced on the wing by Stafford Toa. My tip in this game is the Panthers by 14 points. I'm tipping the Newcastle Knights to keep this respectable. On Friday evening from Cbus Super Stadium, the Gold Coast Titans take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And for the Titans, Tino Fa'asuamaleaui has been suspended for a shoulder charge. That sees Mo Fotuaika move into the starting side and Sam McIntyre join the bench. Anthony Don has returned from a hip injury, which means that Jonas Pearson drops to the reserves. Philip Sami has been named on the reserves bench, so maybe he'll be a late inclusion for the Titans. For the Rabbits, Latrell Mitchell, the naughty boy that he is, kicked a man in the face and now he's suspended. That has forced a backline reshuffle for the Rabbitohs, which sees Alex Johnston move to fullback. He's more than capable in that position. We know that. Jackson Polo moves to the wing. Dane Gagai moves from the centres to the wing to replace Josh Mansour, who's out with a hamstring injury. That means that Stephen Marstons is the new centre. In the forwards, Jacob Host has been relegated to the reserves and Keon Kolomatangi has been named to start in the second row. I've tipped the Rabbitohs to win this one by 7 points because I am tipping the Titans to bounce back after their huge loss to the Seagulls last week and keep it admirable. I used respectable before, admirable. The Eels take on the Broncos from TIO Stadium in Darwin, which is the spiritual home of the Parramatta Eels once a year for as long as that contract runs for. Dylan Brown returns for the Eels at 5'8", which means that Will Smith drops out of the side altogether. William Penasini, an 18-year-old debutant, I believe, for the Eels, has been named on the interchange bench. So congratulations for your call-up, young Penasini. That means that Keegan Hipgrave moves to the reserves list. For the Broncos, Herbie Farnworth makes his return from a shoulder injury in the centres. And new recruit Danny Levi, who only signed with the Broncos today, I believe, he has been named on the bench, I assume to play interchange hooker for the Broncos. They were able to acquire him from the Norths Devils in the Queensland Cup, which is an affiliate of the Brisbane Broncos. And Katoni Staggs, apparently his rehabilitation is ahead of schedule, so he could play as early as Magic Round next month. So that would be good news for the Broncos. My tip in this game is the Eels by 10. I really liked what the Brisbane Broncos brought to the table last week, and I think they're going to keep it competitive. On Saturday, the Sharkies take on the Bulldogs from Netstrata Jubilee Stadium, my favourite stadium to say. The Sharks, huge boost. They get Sean Johnson back, their star 5'8", who has not played NRL since round 19 last year after he suffered that Achilles injury. He's been named on the interchange bench, so they're obviously going to ease him into the game. Will Chambers, new recruit, also I think only signed, not today, I think it might have been yesterday. He's been named in the reserves. Obviously returning from Japanese rugby. I'm not sure if he even got a start given all the COVID stuff. Josh Dugan returns from his concussion woes in the centres. So Teague Wilton goes back to the second row and Jack Williams to the bench. Aidan Tolman will miss this game after taking the early plea on a crusher tackle. And for the Bulldogs, Dylan Napa and Luke Thompson are the new starting props with Jack Hetherington, who shares my namesake, being suspended for 5 games. He really needs to clean up his act, that guy. He's such an effective forward, a great enforcer for the Bulldogs. They need him on the field. He needs to clean up his act and make sure that he's available as much as he can be. He's out for 5 games. Renouf, Atoni is named on the bench after starting in the front row last week. And Chris Smith has been promoted from the bench to the second row, with Ofahiki Ogden and Jackson Torpany being left out of the side. The 3 new faces on the bench are Brad Dietz, Ava Sul Manufagai. I've got to learn how to pronounce that name properly. If you're listening, Ava, I doubt you are, but if you are, thank you. And also, I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. And Matt Dory. My tip in this game is the Sharks by 14. Saturday night, a game that I will watch with very much intrigue as a Canberra Raiders tragic and a tragically sad and angry Canberra Raiders fan after last week's, not just last week's performance, but the last 2 weeks. Anyway, I digress. I've got a video coming out about my feelings on that one a little bit later this week. Let's move on to the team list. For the Cowboys, no changes. No changes for the Cowboys. They've got that luxury. For the Raiders, lots of changes. Ricky Stewart has wielded the axe after last week's performance. There are also injuries. Josh Hodgson is one of the injured parties. He is replaced at starting hooker by Tom Starling. I really like this move for a number of reasons. Josh Papali has been demoted to the interchange bench, and Joe Tarpany has been relegated to the reserves alongside Sia Soliola. So the axe has fallen hard on Joe Tarpany and Sia Soliola. The new starting front rowers this week are Ryan James, who returns after missing out last week. I think he was rested. And Ryan Sutton. And Emre Gula, who was very good last week in a losing side. And Ryan Sutton slips in at lock. Corey Harawira Naira and Corey Horsburgh, the two Coreys, the two naughty boys of this side, have been named on the interchange bench after some really good form in the New South Wales Cup. That's going to be a boost to the team. Seb Chris has been named on the wing to replace injured Bailey Simonson. And somehow Curtis Scott keeps his spot in the centres, unbeknownst to... Oh, is that the right word? We're all shocked is what I'm trying to say. How the hell does that happen? Anyway, I've got a video coming out about that later this week. Raiders by 20 is my tip. Sunday, Anzac Day, we've got 3 games to round out what's going to be a really, really good week of football, a really competitive week of football. Hopefully no blowouts this week. We've got the Tigers, Sea Eagles from Bankwest Stadium. And in this game, for the Tigers, Michael Cheekham moves into the centres to replace Asu Kapoa, who's facing 6 to 9 months on the sideline with an ACL injury. I wish him a speedy recovery. Joey Leilua is on the reserves bench. I don't know why that's worthy of noting of note. He's not on the side. Anyway. Alex Seyfarth moves from the reserves to the interchange bench in a swap with Thomas McKaylee. For the Seagulls, no changes. I think they're going to absolutely put the Tigers to the sword. 30-point win there. Roosters Dragons, traditional Anzac Day clash. That comes to you from the Sydney Cricket Ground, which is the traditional home of rugby league in this country. For the Roosters, Brett Morris returns from injury and he replaces Matt Ikavalu, who drops out of the side. Sam Verrills, he returns to start at hooker for the Roosters in what is a huge up for them. And that pushes Ben Marshke to the bench and Adam Kieran out of the side altogether. So good on Ben Marshke, fifth string hooker at the Roosters, for being able to retain his spot in the side. That's a really good feel-good story they probably won't talk too much about, but I'm talking about it. Good on you, Ben Marshke. Jared Warrior-Hargraves and Sio Siwa Takiaho have been named to play despite not finishing the game against the Storm last week. For the Dragons, Blake Laurie is back after missing the Warriors game, which means that Trent Merrin drops out of the 17. Corey Norman has been named to play despite incurring a shoulder injury in his game last week. And Ben Hunt has been named in the reserves, which means he's closer to a return for the team. I have tipped the Roosters by 10 points in this clash. I think it's going to be an absolute cracker. Last game of the round sees the Storm take on the Warriors. And before I give you these team lists, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to like this content if you liked it, and to subscribe if you haven't already yet subscribed to my channel, and to turn on your notifications so you can stay in the loop of all my content. Also, I have a podcast. I may have mentioned it before. It's mentioned in my video descriptions. It's called the NRL Punters Weekly Digest Podcast. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. It goes for about 30 minutes to 50-ish minutes. I release that once a week. It covers content that we don't necessarily get to in the videos. If you like a rugby league podcast, please check it out. Let's get back to the team lists. For the Storm, Ryan Papenhuyzen is out with an injury, which means that Nicho Hynes takes his spot at fullback. What a luxury to have when you have a guy like Nicho Hynes who can just come into the side and slot in at fullback. It's almost unfair. Dale Finucane returns to the 17 for his first game of 2021, returning from his injury. Trent Lauro and Riley Jacks replace Chris Lewis and Branko Lee in the reserves. For the Warriors, Peter Hiku and Adam Pompey are both out with injuries. David Fusatua returns from a hamstring injury on the wing, and Marcelo Montoya and Jack Murchie are the centers this week. Bailey Sirinen returns on the bench, while Paul Turner, who went on for Hiku late last week, is out with a shoulder injury. And teenager Reece Walsh, who I believe was acquired from the Brisbane Broncos a couple of weeks ago, he's been named in the reserves. Could be in contention for a call-up. My tip in this game is a Storm by 15. Thank you for watching this week, and please look out for my next videos. Obviously, we've got the NRL Best Bets that I do every week, and then I've got a little piece on the Canberra Raiders coming out later this week. I'll catch you next time.